it so that we can try to end on time as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us on this special board meeting so that we can discuss the vacancy that has arisen due to Mr. Abraham's resignation last week. So really what we need to discuss is just the process that has been used in the past, if we want to continue with that process, ensuring that we understand what will be expected of anybody who will be submitting their candidacy, and also determining if we want to continue with the questions that we had in the past, or if we want to consider any new questions that we may want, and then how we want to proceed with the interviews, whether we want to do that as part of a regular board meeting, or whether we want to have a special board meeting that is just dedicated to the interviews themselves. So to begin with, board policy, I believe, is it bylaws page 2, Laura, specifies that we have to fill this vacancy within 60 days of the notice of the resignation. So all of this work needs to get done pretty quickly. And correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, but in what we found in the documentation from the last time we had a vacancy, which was 2011, we didn't find necessarily a timeline for people to submit their documents from La Crosse, the school district of La Crosse, correct?
Correct. Not that I found, no.
Okay. So because Holman actually had to go through this process this year twice, we reached out to Holman to say, what was your timeline? What was your process? Just to also get a different perspective from a different school district. They allowed 3 weeks for people interested to submit their documentation. I was thinking that seemed pretty fair to allow 3 weeks for people to submit their documents, which is, according to our bylaws, no more than a 2-page cover letter and then a resume. So any concerns with allowing a 3-week window for candidates to submit their documentation? Okay, good. So then we will proceed with that. I was concerned that maybe we would have to have a very formal notice of the vacancy. According to what we've seen, you really don't. Honestly, posting it on Hogan's front door would be sufficient notice of the vacancy, but I believe we've talked about posting it on the school district website, posting it on the Hogan front door, like we typically would do with a board meeting agenda, and then posting it on the Board of Education's webpage as well. But we weren't thinking about doing more than that. Definitely not spending money to post something in the La Crosse Tribune. I just don't see necessarily a need to do that, but wanted to bring that up as a conversation point for the board. What are your thoughts about that process? Yeah, Lori.
What have we done in the past? Have we posted it in the Tribune in the past?
Back in 2011, yes, they did post an ad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here in La Crosse we did. Holman did not. So, it's...
How much does it cost to post it in the Tribune?
For that kind of ad, I think it's pretty similar in size and lettering to what I normally do for election, and that's usually around $220, like $220. And so
I'd be curious to hear if any board members have any objections to not putting it in the Tribune that they think that we might hear as board members.
Yeah. Annie?
I think we should put it in because there's been a lot of accusations about us lacking transparency on a lot of things. And this is like a very critical time for the referendum. Mm-hmm. It just seems like if we had it on the door and then in our website where people may not go to look, mm-hmm. there might be more accusations lobbed that we didn't make it clear how to apply and locked out certain people from applying and that sort of thing. So
I agree.
Other thoughts? Okay. That makes, yep. And then as Nick pointed out, yeah, we can also send out a media release, which I would just assume that we would do anyway when it comes to something like this. So thank you, Nick, for pointing that out as well, that a media release would be put out. Obviously, I don't think it is unknown that we will be asking for people to apply for that. That was pretty broad news, but a point well taken that we can always post something in the Tribune. And I can't think of any other places, to be frank. I mean, that is the place where we usually post things anyway. It's where we post our minutes. So that makes sense. So, okay. So at this point, that sounds like where we will post it. So 3-week window, we will post it in the Tribune. We will post it on, like we usually do with the board agenda and on the website, as well as our Board of Education webpage. What else am I missing, Laura, in terms of timeline?
Could I ask a clarifying question on the 3-week window?
Yeah.
When does that begin? From the date of the initial resignation, or from the date of the posting in the Tribune, or what are we thinking?
I would think, to be fair to the candidates, it'd be from the posting in the Tribune.
Okay. That's what I thought too, but I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the only other thing that before we get to questions is just how does the board feel about whether we have this as part of the regular board meeting, or whether we want to have a special board meeting for the interview of the candidates. Part of this is, I believe the last time we did this in La Crosse, we limited answers of the candidates to 2 minutes per question. So that does limit the amount of time we would spend. And also our bylaws specify that we reduce the pool of candidates to 4. So if only 4 or less people apply, then we would interview everybody. If 5 or more apply, then the board would go through a process that's outlined in the bylaws to reduce that number to 4. If we can't reduce to 4, then if there's a tie, then we would interview those people that are tied. So that's we would go through that process, but in either case, we try to get down to 4, and then we would just interview that group of people. So I think we had 10 questions, Laura, I think is the number that comes to mind. So we're talking about 20 minutes maximum if we kept that 2-minute window per individual.
There were 8 the last time.
8. Okay. So a little over an hour and a half per individual. Yeah, Laura, I see you laughing, Lori. So go ahead.
I mean, I gotta see these questions, but I think 8 might even be too many, depending on what the questions are. So, is it possible, Dr. Jimenez, if we just kind of see what the questions are first to make the determination of whether that's best done at a board table or at a regular board meeting or a separate one?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So Laura, if you could share those questions, do you have them up or do you need me to share them?
I was still working on getting them all up.
Okay.
So if you have them up, that's great. Otherwise, I can grab them here real quick.
All right. If you could grab them, that would be great. So while you're getting those up, I can at least start by reading the first question and go. The first one is, tell us a little bit about yourself, including your past or current school community involvement and why you're seeking this office. So pretty standard question, right? Second one, what do you see as the 3 most important issues facing the district, and what talent and expertise could you bring to the board to help successfully address these? Our student population is diverse in many ways. What ideas can you bring to the board to help meet the needs of all students? How do you visualize the relationship between the board and the superintendent, and why? And then, with continued reductions in public spending on public education, budget cuts are necessary. What priorities would you use to balance quality education for all students with the fiscal restrictions we have? What are some key indicators you use to evaluate the performances of schools, and why? How would you go about developing a trust relationship between board members, parents, staff, and community? And then the final question is there anything else we should have asked you? And what else would you like to tell us about yourself? So that's, those are the questions that were asked the last time. So I'm hearing, so go ahead, Lori.
Okay, so I came up with 4 questions, and there's a couple of overlaps, mainly the first one. I mean, what's the interest in joining the board? But there's also some differences. And so how would you like us to proceed in terms of, I don't know if other board members have come up with suggested questions, or how would you like us to discuss those, Dr. Jimenez?
I am totally fine. Actually, I think I'm able now to, can you see the questions in Word? Because let's see.
I apologize. I apparently have to change something in my settings because I haven't done this in a little while. So I'm trying to dig through my system preferences.
Oh, and let's see. Okay, and mine says that I'm sharing.
Yeah, we can see them.
Okay, good. So I am happy to go ahead and make changes to this document and just add the questions and delete from here if that would be helpful to us to do it that way. I am totally, however we want to do that is fine. I think it might be easier to see those questions typed up on the screen, and then we could just go back and forth. Like you, Lori, I saw that there's ways that we could adjust these.
My overarching concern is with the questions is that a number of them are in light of our governance structure. I don't know how helpful these are. And it reminds me of when, including myself, have run for school board and you don't understand the governance structure, and therefore I don't know if we're gonna if I'll leave it there. Yeah. So that's my concern, is because I don't know how helpful that will be for a candidate or for us.
Good point. I think I saw Katie. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I just wondered if maybe some of these questions could be saved for the interview, for people we select for interview.
That would be the idea, is that these are the interview questions.
Oh, sorry. I have COVID, so like I'm just not understanding much at this point.
That's okay. Yeah, these would be the interview questions we would be asking the candidates. So we would review the documentation that they share with us. And then from that, just the documentation, we would narrow the pool to 4. And then these would be the questions we would ask the 4 candidates we narrow down.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Annie?
Could we get rid of number 6, maybe? What are some key indicators you use to evaluate the performance of schools, and why? I mean, we evaluate the result, right? That's so. I also think number 3, it just went black. I'm not sure if that's because it's being edited.
Yeah, I had a change to enable editing, so I apologize for that.
I think number 3 was like, what
the diversity
ideas, what ideas do you have? Maybe you could change it to like, how would you advocate for all of our students' needs, or something like that. Just to get at the advocacy piece of board member work.
How about that? Our student population is diverse in many ways. How would you advocate to support the needs of all students? Does that get at it, Annie? Okay. I have to switch between Google Meet and Microsoft Word. So when I'm in Microsoft Word, I can't see you. So just so you know. Let's see. I see that you have, here are my questions, Lori. but I don't see any questions that came through.
They're coming.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure because sometimes people post things and then they don't show up. So not a problem. Other thoughts as we are working through this? And just so you know, Homa did send some. I don't know that they would be as helpful to us, honestly, being that different district, different timing, different whole thing. Let me grab these and put them in the document. Forgive me for, oh, that's going to be tiny. Okay.
I can send the Holman ones via email.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, hopefully I got the questions, Lori. So like many board members in the state, and that ends with, as a board member, would you commit to receiving PD? The next one is according to our board member code of conduct. And then one responsibility.
Yep.
So let me throw those up there if everybody can see them on the screen. These are the ones that Lori just sent in the chat. I do appreciate the question on coherent governance. I know that that has become more newsworthy, if I can say it that way. So I think that that would be an important question, is something related on the governance structure and better understanding.
And I would say I'm open to wordsmithing or changing any of these, but I would really like at least one question about governance structure and one question about, I pulled these obviously from our board member code of conduct and our own policies. Like, I think that's what should inform the questions that we ask potential members. So one question regarding the expectations of board members, and then governance structure, I'm happy and open to anything else.
And Juan, these would be shared in advance to these candidates, correct? I mean, I think that would be fair, so they have an opportunity to do a little homework, and then we can also see if they've done that too by how they answer the questions.
Yes, I believe that is also part of the bylaws, that we have to share the questions ahead of time. And, quite honestly, right now, this meeting is being recorded and anybody from the community can join this workshop. So that's also another reason why I felt that it was important to have this session virtually, so that people could attend and hear the conversation around what kind of questions we would be asking and why these questions are so important to us as board members, and why these are valuable to the work that we do and to the district that we have supported, and how they have been so important to this school district for over 2 decades under what we used to be called policy governance and now coherent governance. And it does say under the policy, the board shall prepare interview questions which will be provided in advance of the interview to the applicants. It does not specifically state how long in advance. So, but it does say in advance. So, I mean, for me personally, I think that, you could do it a week prior, you could do it 15 minutes prior, but I think, a week prior makes sense. It gives them plenty of time to really do their due diligence, do their research. And if they're really interested in the position, this would give them plenty of opportunity to truly respond to the questions that we would have. So other thoughts or questions, comments on Lori's questions. And again, we can still wordsmith, but just trying to get kind of a feel for where we're at. Again, if we have a 3-week window for people to apply, we've got some time to really wordsmith these questions and think about them. Brenda, go ahead.
So if we have a 3-week window, that means it would be due in 3 weeks, the applications, and then we would have to have a whole week before we would meet to interview them, right? If we give them a whole week to look at the questions in advance.
Well, not only that, if we give them a 3-week window, we would have to meet during the board meeting. We would have to set aside some time for us to review the candidates and choose the candidates that would proceed forward if we had 5 or more.
Okay.
And then notify them. My guess is that at that point in time, not only will we notify them, we would also send them the questions.
Okay.
If we wanted to do a special board meeting in between our regular board meetings, or we would notify them and say next week, please keep an eye out for an email from us, which will have the interview questions attached, and then you would have, we will be meeting with you at the next regularly scheduled board meeting where we would have the interview session. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So any other thoughts?
Well, yeah. I do like Lori's questions. I think they fit what our governance structure, and the other ones do feel a little like we're going into something that they don't necessarily do, and this is what we should be doing. So I do like these questions that Lori gave.
I do, and maybe it's just me, I don't mind question number 1. Tell us a little bit about yourself, right? At least give them an opportunity to feel comfortable. I've never had to do an interview in an open meeting, in an open session that's going to be video recorded and, for lack of better terms, televised. So allowing them an opportunity to just kind of calm the waters would probably be a good thing. So I think at least keeping question 1 makes a lot of sense. The 3 issues facing the district, I think given where we are at with what's going on, I think I just don't see the point of that question. We know what the issues are. There's one big
if they don't know that, we might have to reconsider their application.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that there's things going on and people are paying attention. So, I do appreciate the question about our student population being diverse and how to advocate for our student population. So I think some question related around students and advocacy for students is warranted. So maybe not exactly how this is worded, but something to that effect may make sense. Number 4 does kind of get to coherent governance and the board superintendent relationship. But on the flip side, is it duplicative compared to what Lori has already shared? So something to consider there. This is something, question 5 is something that we've been battling. We shared that on July 18th with the contracts about fiscal, state legislature and funding and reductions in funding. I've heard from people, employees in the district that are feeling like, this is something that maybe should become more front and center for the board to be speaking out about, is the issues of the state legislature not funding public education more fully and not supporting public education enough. So maybe something to think about in keeping that question about how would we consider reductions in public spending and how that affects what we do in the district. Maybe not exactly how this is worded, but maybe a consideration. We've heard a lot about a trust relationship. Again, maybe not necessarily part of coherent governance, but definitely part of what we do as elected officials. So maybe a consideration there. I do always like to close an interview with, is there anything that we haven't asked you that you would like to share? So, question 8 seems like a good way for that individual to provide just, anything else that they feel would be important for us to know about their candidacy. But again, I mean, these are for us to consider. I think given that, and again, those are my thoughts, random as they are, but given that, I think we can take these questions and distill them down and really wordsmith them to a place where we feel more comfortable. But broadly speaking, how do we feel? Go ahead, Lori.
So for some reason, I can no longer see what you have posted on my screen, but no worries.
Shoot.
Just tell me how many, I might be the only one, but tell me how many questions have we gotten this down to now?
Right now, we actually went up to 9. But again, I think that we'll end up reducing.
I thought we had already eliminated some.
We reduced 2 and 6, but then we added the 3 that you had shared.
So I'll get that started. So, I mean, I would say that the question about why is it that you're interested in joining the board?
Yep.
DEI question, I agree with Annie. I think that's an important one.
Yep.
And then the question about governance structure, board member code of conduct. And then, if we want to include the advocacy one, otherwise the question about, is there anything left to be said? I mean, Ideally, like 5 good questions, maybe 6. More than that, I think we need to ask ourselves, like, what are we still wanting to get at that hasn't been addressed by that? And is that necessary?
Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. I'll forward this document to everybody. I'm going to highlight in red the ones that we definitely have said, we want to proceed with. And those would be the 3 that Lori shared. And then the 3 about, tell us a little bit about yourself, the DEI question, and then anything else you want to share with us. The others in black are the ones that we could determine, do we feel like these are necessary? Because I think 5 to 6 is kind of the max. I think that just seems like as much as we really would need. These questions are pretty all encompassing. They're broad, but yet detailed. And we're giving them a week, so they should have some good information. So, yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't know why this is. Let me try again. I'm going to try one more time and then I'm going to give up because I just don't care for Google Meet. So let's try this again. Can you see that now? And if you're shaking your head up and down, I can't see anything because all I can see is Microsoft Word.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So apologize. So as you can see, number 1 and 3 are in red, 8, and then down here, just because of bad formatting. But these are the ones that Lori sent in the chat. So these 3 here in black really are ones that I don't know that we necessarily need, but I understand the reasoning behind them, but I just don't know that they're necessary. Okay, so if we get it down to 6, then we're really talking about not a very long time for interviews. We're talking about 6, 12, 48. So, about an hour for interviews total.
If we cap the questions at
2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay, and again, so I don't want to screw this up. So if you're raising your hand, I can't see my Google Meet at all. So just go ahead and jump in.
Go ahead, Brett.
Juan, I was raising my hand. To me, it seems like that question 3, the diverse in many ways, could be combined with that other question. I think it was Lori's last question about responsibility delegated is to advocate for the district and all our students. Maybe you could kind of weave those two in together. And so I'm kind of seeing the first one, the opening question, kind of the three that Lori had, and then the closing question goes, did we miss anything or whatever? But I think you could do the DEI one with the responsibility of advocating for all of our students. You'd have to word it a little differently, but I think it could be combined in there, and then we'd be down to 5 questions, and I think that would be great.
Sounds good. I heard multiple dings come in with hand raises. So is there somebody else?
I did not raise my hand, but I have a thought about Brad's comment.
Yeah.
I feel like by segregating that question out, we would get a more direct response to what we're looking to see as a response from that question. And if it's commingled in a larger question, people might gloss over that part of the answer. And I think that's something that we really want to know about people, is how committed to DEI they are. Although the question isn't explicitly asking that, but I think having a shorter question specifically related to the diversity of students is, the questions are similar. Brad is right. I just think that the answer is really important for that one.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'll jump in and add, I guess when I was thinking about that question, I was thinking of it in terms of like directly the work that we do on the board as we review reports and check in on progress on things. Whereas the question that Lori had was, I thought of more as like advocacy, like to state legislature and that sort of thing. If they were lumped together, it could be revealing about how people interpret what advocacy means. If they're just thinking like you advocate in one direction up instead of through the district too. But I also see the benefit of keeping it separate, just because I would like to hear like a thoughtful, detailed response on what that would mean to the candidate.
And I'll also jump in just because it was my original question. I should also say that I do think it is important to have the DEI question, and therefore I am perfectly okay with using that in place of that advocacy question. When I was prepping for our meeting tonight, basically I was just coming up with, I didn't know if we'd use any or all of the questions. So I'm saying I'm not wedded to that advocacy question, particularly because the person who fills the role will be until the spring election. I don't know how fair that or question might be. I'm okay. I like Brad's idea of keeping it to like 5. 5's like a number I like. So I would, if Katie and Annie and others want to just replace that advocacy question and make it an advocacy question about marginalized students in our district, I'm totally okay. So no feelings hurt here.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I think we've got a good working start. I'm sensing consensus that these 3 questions here in the middle are really not needed. Unless I hear objection, I'm just going to delete them. Any objection? And again, I cannot see heads or faces, so I need to hear objection for me to not delete them.
No objection.
That's what I was thinking. So they're gone. I will go ahead and forward this on to everybody then, and we will proceed with you all. I'm going to stop presenting then, and we'll get feedback from everybody on these. Send it directly to me, and then I can wordsmith and take your wordsmithing and recreate a document, forward it back out, and we'll go from there. That way, we are being very careful. So that should be good there. I'm thinking 2 minutes per question, maybe 3 minutes tops seems comfortable given the questions that we have. So I'm thinking inside a regular board meeting should be okay. Do we have any concerns from people? Laura and I can work on massaging whatever needs to be done in an agenda in order to incorporate this, whether it be at the first or third board meeting. We'll make it work. So yeah, go ahead, Lori, and then Annie.
So just coming full circle then, if we're going to just have 5, I don't have an objection to doing it at a regular board meeting, so long as, I mean, you would know the agenda better than anyone, Dr. Jimenez. So as long as there's space to do that in one, I have no concern now that we've gotten it down.
Okay. Annie, go ahead.
So would this likely be like the September 19th board meeting? Or would we be all the way into October for these? No, September?
Have to be September.
Okay. And with like the budget stuff coming up, is that, I'm trying to remember if those are like typically long meetings.
The major budget stuff, and Patty, feel free to jump in here, but I think we really get hot and heavy with the budget in October. There's some stuff that'll come in September, but it's really in October where we have the meetings where we have to pass things before the end of October.
Well, the first meeting, the 19th, will be your first introduction to the budget. So that is a little bit longer. And then the next meeting is an action item. So that's October 3rd or so. And then the budget hearing is October 18th, which isn't long. And then, or not 18th, but the 17th, I think it is. So, yeah, so the 19th, there is some meat to it, but I thought we were going to meet the Monday before because we're missing Labor Day. I don't know if we'll be ready by then for interviews.
So if I did my math correctly in looking at the calendar, I'm estimating, but I believe the ad should be posted in the Tribune at the very least latest by August 15th, which is this coming Monday. So then if we count 3 weeks out from there, that would take us to, what's that?
September 5th.
Yes. So then there would be time to review applications. So then we could bring those to the September 12th meeting, which would mean then the September 19th meeting would still be the budget, the introductory to the budget.
How are we feeling? Because September 5th is Labor Day. So, and we have 60 days. So, I mean, roughly by October 1, roughly speaking, we need to fill this position. So I'm thinking, go ahead, Lori.
Okay. So I just want to follow this timeline. So if we get if the deadline for applications is early September, then I assume at the next board meeting, we would either just, if there are less than 5, we're just going to accept the interview and then make arrangements for the future. Yep. But at that meeting, if there are more than that, there'll be an action. The board will narrow that at that point.
Correct.
Okay. And then at the next meeting, potentially we could have the interviews. And then I'm guessing that an action would have to be taken that night in order to meet that deadline.
Correct. Or we would have to have a special board meeting.
Okay. And if I remember the board policy correctly, we're just vote. Just every member gets a vote on those candidates, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay.
It says each board member shall vote for one person, the person receiving the highest number of votes, but at least 4 votes shall be elected. If no person meets this standard, the board will continue to vote after deleting the names of the ones that have received the fewest votes. And then it goes into further discussion of if it's a tie.
Yeah. That's a flip of a coin. So, yeah, so we have one other option, is that instead of doing a 3-week window, do we want to do a 2-week window for candidates to submit? That might give us a little bit more breathing room. Again, it's challenging. I mean, we met as quickly as we could after the vacancy. I want to ensure people have enough time to submit things, but I also am trying to get things done within 60-day window, and it's not easy to get it all done that quickly, given what we need to do in the meantime. So thoughts about maybe using a 2-week window instead of a 3-week window?
Well, why don't we just do, I mean, if it's not going to, I mean, if we do a 2-week window, and Laura, you're saying the latest would be the 15th that it would be in there, why not just make it September 1st, which is Thursday of that week? Is that going to make a big difference? And then it's just like September 1st, and
Yep.
Seems like a good date.
It's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
In between.
Yeah. Everything's due by the end of the day, October 30, or excuse me, August 31. And that, so we've given them the entire month of August to submit their, or half of the month of August to submit their documentation. And then we'll take September in order to find the right candidate. That sound good? Okay. All right. Well, we have gone over, by about 20 seconds. So, I want to thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. I wanted to ensure that we went through the process. Everybody was aware of what the process is. We haven't done this in over a decade, so this is really important to get right. And allow the community their opportunity to have somebody represent them on the school board and have a full voting board. In terms of the last thing I just wanted to share with people is in terms of a referendum communication plan. Nick is here, and I want to thank him for joining us. But I want everybody, just because some of us couldn't join on August 1. I just want everybody to be aware that even though right now the president acts as the spokesperson, I'm going to be relying on many of you to help with the referendum communication plan. And, Brenda shared a great story on Monday about her journey from beginning to end of how she got to supporting the referendum, and it didn't mean that she started that way. And so, I think talking about your own personal journey of how you got to supporting the referendum would be beneficial. If you can attend either the staff informational sessions or the community informational sessions, I think it's going to be important for us to stand side by side with Erin through this process, because this is all of us. We were all in this together from the beginning. We were all bringing forward the ideas from the community. And I think it's going to be really, really important for us to be a part of this process. So I attended a staff session yesterday. I'll be attending the sessions tomorrow. I won't be able to attend Thursdays. So if somebody is able to attend Thursdays, I really would appreciate somebody from the board to be present. I've been hearing from the community that, some negative comments about, is the board going to be present? And, I think it's important for us to be there. So, I would encourage you to tap into Nick. Not that I want to add a lot of work onto Nick's plate, but I would encourage you to use Nick's expertise in if you need help in crafting that story. Lori's going to have a great op-ed that she shared with us in the paper, and I would encourage all of us to consider adding something in the paper. Brad, you and I need to get together and think about how we want to potentially write something, or if you just want to do something yourself, that's fine too. Erin and I have talked about wanting to do more together, writing to to the Tribune and writing more in there, but also we committed to writing our legislators on school funding. And so if you have not done that yet, I would encourage you to reach out to your legislators. And I think, having a solid voice from our board, if we want to do that as a board, as opposed to just individual board members, we could do that as well. That may not be a bad idea either. And I would obviously want to tap into Nick and Aaron as well, so that we have a united front and a united voice, because that is important. That's what we said we were going to do, and we have to walk our talk. And so I want to ensure that we're all doing that. So the other thing I would encourage you to do is also to sit down with me if I'm not doing what needs to be done. And I respect and value all of you. I think many of you have done that already, and I appreciate you for doing that. It's necessary. It's important. I'm human. I've got flaws, and so please continue to do that. I think that's all I had. Does anybody on the board have anything that they want to share in terms of the referendum communication plan, ideas, suggestions before we sign off for the day?
Just wondering, was today a staff session or
not today? We'll have one tomorrow at 4:00 virtually. So you're all welcome to pop on if you have time and an interest. It'll be a good opportunity, I think, to get more staff involved. We had about 40 people, I would say, on Monday, but I would say probably a third of them were folks that work at Hogan, given the proximity, and it's summer, right? Folks got plans. But every informational session we've had from the start of this whole thing, focus groups, etc., have been really great. People have had good questions. They've had lots of opportunity to listen to how other people view things. And so I have found them to be very informative, both for me and for the community. And so I'm really excited to see where these go over the next couple of weeks and months. I've received a whole host of emails over the last week, probably about 20 to 25, that have expressed an opinion on the referendum. And I would say it's been about equal. 50% have been supportive of the referendum and 50% have questions and concerns. And so I expect to hear something similar in our informational sessions as well. But a great opportunity to get information out. I'm distributing flyers wherever I can. Library board meeting tonight, handed a bunch out. Just encourage people to show up, get their questions answered. It's been very informative.
Lori?
With regards to the information sessions, what should board members know or expect in terms of attendance? In other words, are you expecting board members to speak? What would be helpful?
Yeah, I'm not expecting board members to speak. I was hired to do this job and to ensure that folks have information so that they can make a good decision. If a board member feels compelled to speak by something or to weigh in at a given point, you're more than welcome to. I don't want to say volatile environment, but it's an exciting environment, where anything can happen, right? In an informational session, our folks have the floor, right? So lots of stuff comes up. And so if there is something that you're interested in speaking on, I would think about that in advance. If there's an element that you would like to weigh in on that you think you could, add to productively, I would think about those, like the sentence or the words that you're going to speak in advance, because people take things seriously at these sorts of things, and there's lots of emotions, and people feel very passionately about their schools and their identities. And so I would just caution folks to be really thoughtful if you decide to weigh in, because you never know where it'll go. I have put my foot in my mouth plenty of times over the years, and maybe even in the last month. So I want to forewarn others to just be careful as you enter that environment. That's all. But yeah, no expectation, but appreciate any time a board member wants to just make eye contact. I'll hand it off and give you an opportunity to weigh in, especially as it relates to like collective commitment to this, you know, and your own journey on how you got TS. I think that's important. I think where the board can probably weigh in a lot is more in terms of process, you know, how we got here, you know, folks pick at that, you know, because they have concerns about the integrity of the process. And so, you know, whether it's surveys or board information or, you know, how the process works, I think that's a great area for board members to weigh in particular. Some of the facts and figures I'll have more access to, of course, because I've been looking at them for years. But
that's helpful to know just as far as the expectation. So it also, it's fine just to come and be there and listen.
Absolutely. Just being there, I think, says a lot. I might just mention that you are there at the front end. I usually mention the other core referendum members who have been like leading this, you know, Patty, Troy, Joe, Nick, if they're there. And I might also mention board members if you're there. That way you get credit for showing up. Otherwise, they might not know your face or know that you're there. And it's somebody that you can talk to on the side even. You know, a lot of your influence will be more just like one-on-ones and small group conversations before, during, or after the person that you're sitting next to. I think that has been as powerful as anything that I can offer, is just that personal conversation with somebody at a table or as you're walking out of the building. So.
Other thoughts or comments from other board members or from our administrative colleagues? Any words of wisdom walking into that room?
I would also say the news will probably be there the first couple of events. They will start to not show up shortly thereafter. You do not need to make any comments. Like Juan and I are the spokespeople for the school district, you know, by policy, you know, but if you feel compelled to do so, you know, talk to Juan and, you know, I think there's absolutely room to make comments on camera or to the newspaper if you're so inclined. But I just want to warn you that media may be there and you know, they love another perspective, and they will certainly have perspectives from all sides from the folks that are present, but, you know, board members make for good copy as well.
Excellent. Okay, well, I have kept you a lot longer than I had intended. So again, thank you everybody for your time and your efforts, and we will proceed forward. So thank you very much. I will send this document out to everybody today. Have a great evening. Thank you everybody for staying late on this special workshop. Have a good night.
Thanks, man.